here we are again. This is episode 7?
Is it 7?
I got that one right. We have been, like everyone else in the country, I think, kind of bounced around by the news. So we thought, instead of trying to plan anything out or have a particular topic, we would just go with the way things are. So, see if you like that. Don't forget that you have to like and you have to subscribe, and we really would like comments. Now, our director has admitted under waterboarding that he has not uploaded the last video, so we've got we're one behind. So there's one from the 6th one from last week, and then the one this week. Admittedly, he's extremely busy, so he's running several empires, in fact. Speaking of empires, what do you think of our leader?
Oh, don't ask me that. I'm going to go the other way. I think Trump is the leader, but we know Trump has some issues. And we've known that for a long time. The people to whom I'm going is the Republican Congress. These people voted for Trump knowing all of his deficiencies. They knew these tendencies were there, and yet they voted for him in order to supposedly get some of the things that they wanted done, like taking insurance away from people, like changing the Voting Rights Act, like looking at affirmative action. And that's why I'm looking at the Congress. Trump is one person, but the Republican Congress is keeping this man propped up. So the Republican Congress, I think the Democrats and independents are going in the wrong direction by going after Trump. Go after the people in your neighborhood who is supporting him, because they are the ones that have helped him to stay where he is and to keep on going. For instance, affirmative action with Beauregard Sessions. Jefferson, excuse me. Beauregard Sessions. Now, we all know this man is from the South, and I'm not saying that people cannot change, but he is going after affirmative action. He is saying he's going to, quote unquote, bring law and order back to the United States.
We all know
well,
what
let me
that
tell
means.
you, you ought to start with your president, Mr. Sessions, because he has brought a lot of anger, and he has freed people to go in and do what he said he thought ought to happen when he was running, that people ought to be beaten. He could go and shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and he would be just fine. He would not lose any of his support, and he didn't, because you put him in the White House. Now, looking at affirmative action, because if we had affirmative action, you would put Donald Trump out of the White House, because he is incompetent, he doesn't know anything about history, and he is not a businessman. And some of you can get upset with me, but as I like to say, Oprah Winfrey started with no shoes, and she has almost as many billions as Donald Trump, who started with a silver spoon in his mouth and discriminating against people. So you ought to look at that. And when he talks about what a great businessman he is and how rich he is. And it surprises me that people who are poor, and I understand many of his supporters are not poor, but people who are, who need health insurance, because to me, health insurance is a right. If you aren't healthy, you can't accomplish anything. And I don't want to get on to preach, but I just need to say this. Now about affirmative action, and I remember when affirmative action was passed. And white people were just so upset because we were going to get incompetent people, and at that time blacks. We were going to get people who were incompetent and they were just there because of their color and blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump is in the White House because of his color, and he used racism to get there. And again, you can't continue the racism that is going on unless he is supported by white people. And the number of Hispanics and blacks don't count. But it's white people who are propping this president up. So what do you think about that?
Well, thank you for that introduction. Yeah. My issue always is people don't look behind what's going on. They don't often have the background information, and that's where I get my reputation of lecturing and so forth. Because
he does lecture sometimes.
I do lecture because frankly, if people knew what the situation was, what's that thing? If all others around you are losing their heads when you remain calm, maybe you just don't understand the situation. And so I'm trying to say people need to understand the situation. For me, Trump signaled, going all the way back to the Central Park jogger case, the birther stuff with Obama, all of the lawsuits he faced with discrimination against blacks, on and on and on. This has been there. People knew who they were getting. Don't tell me they didn't. I can't stand it when they get on this housewife in her frock saying, well, I just thought, we really need help around here. And he said he was going to change everything and bring everything back. And I have a lot of quarrels with my so-called brethren on the left. So people think I'm left because I vote for Democrats. I'm a leftist. I'm a radical leftist. And believe me, that's happened to me. I've been labeled that simply because I vote Democratic instead of Republican. Of course, I do live in one of the reddest spots on the history on the planet, which is the East Valley of the Phoenix metropolitan area. Anyhow, those people on the far left who, they complain about everything. They want their ideals realized and fulfilled. That isn't what politics is, for God's sakes. It's people getting together who have different needs, different agendas, different perceptions of things, different values, different. That's what this country is. And I think that is one thing you see among these people that they've recently dubbed the alt-right, which is just another word for the old white supremacist faction we've always had with us. We want everyone around us to be like us. They're not comfortable with anyone who's different, they say. Until, of course, their kid gets sick and they go to the doctor, guess who's his Ahmed Puraswamy or something, right, from India. And they're so happy that this doctor is taking care of their kid. And then they go out and they scream about immigrants. They don't put things together. That's the problem. So what did Trump do? Trump came in and voiced all of these sad, immature, silly resentments. People that think, why can't they just sit down and get things done there in Washington? Well, because what some of them want to get done, you don't like. And you've got representatives there representing you that are going to fight against those people. Then your representative tries to get something done that you like, and you got other people, they don't want that.
It's called compromise.
And it's the way our government works, and that's kind of when Letha was talking about affirmative action and so forth. Dishonest people, and I'll call them dishonest, and that includes, for example, the Republican Party, when they started talking about states' rights when everyone with a brain knew states' rights equaled keep segregation, keep the blacks in their place, and so forth. Well, how do you do that? You stir up people. You tell stories about roving black gangs. I remember the story about poor innocent white elderly people driving, and if someone flashed their lights at them and they didn't flash back or whatever, some horrible black pimp was going to put a bullet in their head. I mean, that was a big thing for a while.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I remember that crap, and the internet has just exploded that. I think it was on the Vice program about the people in Charlottesville, thank you. One of the young guys that was, and that's another whole issue. My wife's been saying a long time, it's not all the old white guys sitting in front of their TVs. There's a lot of young white people that are involved in this racist white supremacy crap. One of them said, "Oh, I saw it on the internet." Just like some 75-year-old, well, okay, I'm 75. I'll be 76 in a few days. Guy sitting in front of his TV saying, "But I saw it on the internet." Alex Jones said he has the proof. He says he has the proof that aliens have taken over the mind of the president.
Well, this one they have.
Maybe, yeah, okay, maybe Alex Jones has a point. And it's really hard for people like my wife and me who have lived the experience of blackness in the United States. She a little bit more than me. But we follow this. And I understand there's a lot of people out there that do not deal with African Americans on a regular basis, and they don't know all the things that go on. It was just one reason we're doing this, although there's plenty of good books out. But then we get back to my academic lecturing that I like to do.
Well, and then people don't want to read. They don't want to listen to us because we're preaching. You get bored, just like our president. But he's the president. He's supposed to have a mind longer than a gnat's tail, and he doesn't. And that's what we're dealing with. But let's get back, for me, I'm going to go back to affirmative action because we were talking about it when we were at dinner. And affirmative action came in 1960, about late 60s.
Yeah. Under Nixon, a Republican president.
A Republican president.
Think about it.
And I remember I was working in Phoenix, in the Phoenix Union System. And I remember they were showing a video about it and everything, and people were raising their hands saying they're going, that when they started this, that people were going to be hired who weren't prepared, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they ought to look at the president today. Okay? And we used to have something called the Peter Principle. We don't hear much about that anymore.
Peter Principle, yeah.
Because it means you've reached your level of competence.
Of incompetence. You've passed.
Of incompetence.
Yes, you were competent, but now they've promoted you up to your level of incompetence.
Look at your president. But anyway, so I listened to all of this, and I'm saying, so all of the years that white people have been in charge with everything in the United States, and by the way, they still are, so the world is just perfect. There are no incompetent white people, and I'm saying, I work with incompetent white people every day.
She's even kind of married to one, I think.
So what's up with that? And I always tell white people, stop looking at minorities and start looking at yourself and see what it is that you're doing or the people around you are doing. And that way you can begin to say, hey, we're not all competent.
As David Duke told President Trump, look in the mirror, buddy. We're the ones that put you in office. Now, I am by no means saying that every person who voted for Trump has some kind of racist resentment or agenda, although there is a lot of that. But I want to talk about this affirmative action business because affirmative action is one of the things that the right wing has used to scare white people into believing either that they're not going to get a position in a company or they're not going to get a position in grad school or something because of all these undeserving That's undeserving minorities that are put in there. Okay, there's a number of things here. Here I go lecturing. Then you have the fear that one of those incompetent people is going to be treating your kid that you take him into the hospital. Well, and you remember Michael Corleone in The Godfather, when his wife was sick or something, and there was a doctor, and they took him to the doctor, and it hit him. You know, the doctor is mobbed up, and he got his medical degree because no one dared not give it to him, you know, and he got to thinking about that. So those are the fears that people like to spread, that these people are incompetent. Now, who do they say that about? Barack Obama. Barack Obama didn't earn his degrees and so forth. See, these are the things that people on the right use, to undermine others. Now, take a look at your society now. Turn on TV, and I said this, I think, in an episode earlier on, and look at all the experts that they bring on. Now, there's good reason to bring these experts on, because they're experts. They really know what they're talking about. And look how many of them are black. How many of them are CEOs, head up big organizations. How many of them have credentials up the yin-yang and have all kinds of academic degrees and military experience, and on and on. They could not all have been put there by affirmative action being handed out to incompetent people. Now, I mentioned the military.
Right.
The military was the first institution of our society to be integrated. I think it was 1948, President Truman integrated the military. President Truman did not like black people. He was interviewed one time.
Nor did Lincoln, the party of Lincoln, nor did Lincoln.
And Truman was asked, and he said, well, you know, I don't like the idea of a black man consorting with white women either. So, you know what I mean? He was a man of his time. He was from Missouri. But he saw the wisdom, and I'm reading a book right now that's going to get into that, and I haven't quite got there yet, but he integrated the military. Well, the military is a somewhat different institution. It's very strict. It has strict guidelines, strict job descriptions, strict evaluations. And what's happened is the military has shown more and more and more African Americans, culminating perhaps in Colin Powell, who have succeeded very well. Now, there's still discriminatory practices in the military. They're trying to root those out. Now they're trying to bring women into a position where they can be in combat roles. Why should women, I just go on and on. Why should women be in combat roles? Because that's where you develop your leadership, and when you come back into society and you want to run for office, or you want to head up an organization, what did you do? What did you do? You know, I was in a combat unit. I have combat ribbons. All right? Makes a big difference.
But one of those. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in the university system, these all universities should all be based on test scores, the highest test score, blah blah blah. Well, a university that's private is free to do whatever it wants, within reason. A state school is supported by all the taxpayers, and a state school's mission. Someone mentioned this a few years ago. Wow, I didn't think of that. A state school's mission is to educate leadership in each segment of society. And so if you have a society like ours that tends to be divided between various ethnic groups and occupationally, socioeconomically, blah, 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 but the university's job is to make sure that it educates people out of each of those areas, even though in our minds we're usually thinking of people getting a college education to get out of those categories. But the university's mission is a state school is to educate someone from everywhere. So those are one more for affirmative action. I was working in a job development program. That is, we took people in who were, they called them hardcore unemployed. This was around 69 and 70, and affirmative action had just come in. And it was great because companies now were coming to us and saying, hey, we want some minorities because affirmative action is in. We've got to show that we are recruiting minorities. Some people went nuts over that, but we began finding openings. Now, did everyone fit in? No, but a lot of people were able to get their foot in. And my last thing, I promise I'll shut up. The Pentecostal church my wife was raised in, I started going there in 1960, 61. And I got to know the people there. A few years later, in the late 60s, like I said, Affirmative Action came in. And I knew of those people. And I began to see people who had held menial jobs start to get their foot in the door because of Affirmative Action. And usually public offices, like state offices, and not offices, but positions with state employment, county, the city, and so forth, where blacks had not been before. And they discovered, wow, these people can do the job. And so over the year, we're talking 40, 50 years now, we've been married 53 years, about 50 years, I've seen the people in this church, one generation after the other, advance because of Affirmative Action. Because especially government offices said, hey, we've got to get more minorities in here. And when they did, they discovered they worked out, So
yeah, if you open the door, people will walk in.
Yeah.
And I would say the majority of people know when they are not prepared for a job and will not take it. Unlike Carson.
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, world-renowned surgeon. Why didn't Trump make him the
health?
The health. What do you call it? The doctor for the.
Yeah, it's called the Surgeon General.
Surgeon General. That's his area. So he put him in charge of something that he knows nothing. I repeat, nothing about.
Housing.
And he is just as incompetent as your president is in being the president. Ben Carson resigned because you know nothing, okay? Just like Betsy DeVos knows nothing about public education. Her mission is to destroy public education. Now, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
One of the Republicans just the other day said what Trump had done, well, he's given more vouchers to quote-unquote minorities so that they can go into these charter schools and, schools of their choice. Now, that is one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard. Now, you are going to put minority children whose parents are probably working at a minimum wage job, not all, and this kid is bussed across the whole city to get to these schools. And so who is the responsibility and the financial problem put on? It's put on the poorest parent to get that child over there. And if the child becomes sick, that parent has got to somehow find a way over to get that child. Okay? So African Americans who feel like all of these vouchers, and by the way, the vouchers are not enough money to take care of the needs of these children in these schools. Now, let me digress a minute. I went to a segregated school up through 8th grade. And what I say, and later on, Dr. Morrison Warren, who was a very well-known professor and community person, he helped to desegregate a lot of the things here in Arizona. A very knowledgeable man who went through segregation, and when he played football for ASU, he could not go into the same restaurants and facilities that the white kids could go into. And one of the things that he talked to Pat and me about is that he feel like where African Americans went quote unquote wrong is we allowed people to close black schools and move our kids into quote unquote all white schools. And what happened with that? That made white kids think, oh, they're not as good as us because they closed their schools and now they have to come to our schools. That was not the intent. The intent was equal opportunity. Has not happened. If you go into minority areas, the schools in older white areas and minority areas are old, and things are falling down and everything. And then you look at the charter schools that are going up. They're built with all of the latest electronics and everything, and the buildings are this and that. And so we still don't have equal opportunity. And black and Mexican parents needs to look at what's going on. Didn't Diane Ravitch say that who has taken at the full advantage of these charter schools and everything are middle class white people?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no question the whole charter movement is to resegregate society. And Diane Ravitch, that she mentioned, is an expert on the history of education in the U.S. and was formerly a big charter school advocate. And she looked at the data, the research, and she flipped completely, alienating a lot of her colleagues. And she said she traces the charter school movement back to the white academies in the South that were set up to avoid segregated schools, so the white kids could go to schools with just white. So this whole education thing is a farce. We mentioned a few other things that are put out there, like voter securing the ballot. It's not securing the ballot, it's keeping certain kinds of people from voting. Those are when I say we need to look behind things, what's really going on, what are the motives. So we need to do that with everything. And yes, the Charlottesville incident was horrible, and it really highlighted some things about these white supremacists and so forth. And we have a map, I've got it right in there, I could get it, but my director says we're about to wrap up, of all the white supremacy groups around the country, including the ones here in Arizona. You know, frankly, those are not the people that bother me. The people that really bother me are people who, for example, support Donald Trump no matter what he does. I mean, Bill Maher was on last night. Yeah, Bill Maher was on last night, and he said some really, really gross, ugly things the week before also about Trump, about his daughter. Oh, I mean, really, really bad stuff.
And we don't agree with
and I don't. I mean, I don't quite get that. That to me is the internet junk that you see, you know. And I guess that's the other thing about the way we're doing this. We like to maintain a little dignity, and apparently the big thing is to lose your dignity. That makes everything funny and all that. Well, I'm sorry, too old.
That's not us.
That's not us. And so I think we have to look at these sad creatures, and the Vice show in particular showed some of these people at their worst. You know, those aren't the people. It's the ones who support Trump no matter what he does. That's the first layer right there.
The Congress.
It doesn't. Yeah, all the Republicans. They won't even name Trump. Remember all the thing about Obama not calling it radical Islamic terrorism? Well, he didn't want to call it Islamic because that's a smear of the whole religion. That's why he didn't do it. But it's like, to me, I see no problem talking about right-wing Christian fanatics or something. Oh, you're saying Christians are fanatics? No, you know, but
some of them are.
That's why I don't say Christian. I just say right-wing fanatics. And are there Christians that are in there? Obviously, since the majority of evangelicals still support Trump, despite the things that he's done and said, and they know there's no way they could not know. They don't live in a cave. They know what he's done, and they still want him in there. Whatever your needs are, that's fine, but I still hold you responsible for supporting him.
And one of the ministers at the church where the young lady who was killed in Charlottesville went has a multicultural church. I think he said they have 18 different ethnic groups in the church. And he said he was absolutely fine, and people in the church were just wonderful. So look at yourself, look at your Congress people, because they are the ones that are propping this racist, bigoted president up.
And look at your YouTube, and look at our channel, and like us, and subscribe to us, and send us your comments, questions.
We love some comments.
Criticisms, whatever.
Whatever you need.
We're good.
We will discuss it, because that will bring some fun to it, because you'll get to hear us, and we'll read what you say on when we're talking about it, and we'll try to respond to it. So with that,
yes, I've had a grin on my face this whole time because our dog is lying down here and just watching my wife as she holds forth with adoring eyes.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.